Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, who all in this truth from the well. Peace and salutation to the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3, large multitude, until I say shalom. Coming to you back with another Let's Do Spirit. And the title for this was going to be America Will Not Be Healed. And ultimately, because we see that America is going down the drain, it's on its way out. Because America, which is Babylon the Great, spoken about in scriptures, is prophesied to be destroyed. But first, it's going to be torn from the inside out. From the infrastructure, the economy, the morals on these people is just decaying more and more. Which these are all signs of a fallen empire, just like back in the ancient Roman Empire, where the currency was being devalued. And you had inflation. You had the military being spread too thin. You had the Roman emperors feeding the citizens, the people, with bread and circus, distractions, to keep them from distracted from the collapsing empire. And it's the same thing going on today. That's why all these different distractions are being pumped. You got sports 24/7 to keep the people distracted from what's really happening around the world. You got all the different prophecies playing now, from World War III, from the MOTB infrastructure being set up to have everybody micro hip. But yet people don't know and they don't see that this place is on its way out. Ultimately, because Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai has blinded majority of these people out here, especially the nation of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. They're the main ones that can't see that this place is through, that it's on its way out. Because these Edomites, these self-proclaimed white people, they can see that this place is collapsing and it's on its way out. They can see that the dollar is collapsing. They can see that America doesn't have long. But yeah, it's our own people, the nation of Israel, they're just completely blinded and don't see that America's about to collapse. But one thing that these Edomites aren't counting on is for this place to be hit by those missiles. They're going to be shot by Russia, China, Iran, these different countries that are against America. Because these Edomites, these self-proclaimed white people, in their mindset, they foresee that all hell is about to break loose, that there's going to be civil wars, race riots, martial law. But their way of preparing is carnal, stocking up on ammo, stocking up on guns, building bunkers, building these different shelters to protect themselves from the upcoming hell that's about to take place upon the planet Earth. But one thing that they're counting out is that even if you do make it out of all these different situations, even if you don't take the micro Z-hip, ultimately you still got those intercontinental ballistic missiles that are going to utterly destroy America. And that's what majority of people don't know. They don't see that America is going to be hit by those missiles, ultimately because Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai has blinded them completely, because he wants them destroyed. This is Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse 7. Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand. They made all the earth drunken. And that's right. Ultimately, America's philosophy is democracy, is petrodollar, establishing all these different military bases, embassies throughout all the nations. Allowing these different nations to partake, and with the U.S. to join hand in hand. Ultimately, they have to partake in the philosophies of Babylon, the image of the beast. Using that U.S. dollar, being, pushing out the alphabet agenda, the Mo agenda, feminism, pretty much the Western way of living, that Babylonian way of living, which now is getting to the point where all these nations are tired of America. They're tired of his philosophies, his dollar. That's why everybody's doing away with the U.S. dollar. That's why the BRICS was formed, to combat the U.S. in its grip that it has on the whole world. It says the nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad, and that's right. All these different nations that were once allied with the United States, now they're starting to turn against the whore. They're starting to hate this whore. Ultimately, because this whore, the only thing that it's done is just sucked up these different nations dry for their resources. Pretty much it doesn't offer anything but death and destruction. That's why ultimately all these different nations are done with America. Verse 8, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. How for her take balm for her pain, if so she may be healed. And that's ultimately what's going to be the end of America, is going to be destroyed by those intercontinental ballistic missiles. It's going to be destroyed by that fire. But these people can't see that. They Jake, their mindset is that America is going to be healed, everything is going to bounce back. But no, man, this place is just it's collapsing. It's imploded in itself. And just like ancient Egypt back then, it got plagued by all the different plagues, and then eventually it was that one final plague to just bring it down. And look at the pyramids now. It's just ruins of what the most powerful empire at that time was, and it's going to be the same for America. America is going to be a monument of how not to rule the planet Earth, and to be an example of if you rule the world in wickedness, then this is going to be your end. That's why America is never going to be inhabited ever again, to be an example to the whole world of how not to live, how not to conduct yourself as an empire, because then, this is what's going to happen. Verse 9. We will have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her and let us go every one into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven and is lifted up even to the sky. So this place is done for. It's through. It's not going to be healed. America is not going to be made great again, like these Edomites are thinking. They got fooled into voting for Donald Trump, and now that Donald Trump is backstabbing them, now they're mad. That's why they're preparing for civil war. They're preparing for all hell breaking loose. But in their mindset, they think that once these civil wars or race wars, after everything cools down, that somehow, they're going to re-emerge from a collapsed society and have gold and silver in stock and guns and ammo, and they're going to be all right. But what they don't know is that this place is going to be destroyed by fire. It's going to be completely through. Everybody here that is not a part of the elect is going to be annihilated through those intercontinental ballistic missiles. And we can see that this place is done for. The economy's collapsing. The wars on these people are getting worse. The hearts of these people are waxing cold. They can feel it that this place is done, but yet somehow they're still clinging on to that hope. A lot of them are faking the funk. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 3. In a day when the keepers of a house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves in the grinding seats, because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened. That's right. Ultimately, the windows being darkened, that's going into the optimism that people have in this place being gone, which majority of the people really don't have any optimism left for this place, because they can see that it's through. You got mass layoffs, you got AI replacing all these different jobs, you got people not being able to afford rent, not being able to afford groceries, you got people's food stamps, SNAP benefit being cut, Section 8 being cut. These are all different signs of a dying economy, of the collapse of a country. But yet, majority of people, they can't see it. They have that hope that somehow America's gonna bounce back, that it's just a recession or a depression, and it's gonna go away. But no, it's only gonna get worse from here. Verse 4, and the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Yeah, and the grinding is low. The grinding is ceasing. All these jobs are cutting, reducing their workforce. People are losing their jobs. Now you got homelessness at an all-time high. You got people's hours being cut, ultimately because people don't have money. People aren't spending. People are either choosing to pay their rent or buy groceries. And some people they can't even afford either. So pretty much out here homeless and through. Especially these white people, these Edomites, they're the main ones that are through, because somehow Jake is still doing, some Jake is doing pretty well off for himself. So that's how you know that this economy's through. When you have, Jake doing better than the people who are meant to be in rulership. You got Esau, Edom, and yet he's not prospering in his own kingdom. That's how you know that this place is through. The way that these elites run this country, it was never meant to be forever. America was an experiment. And that experiment is almost done with. That's why this devil is starting to come down with that great wrath, ultimately because he has a short time. He has to get his new world order up and running, because he knows that Yahushua is on his way back. And once Yahushua makes his return, this place is done. It's finished. Those missiles will be shot over here, and this place is going to be utterly destroyed. This is Isaiah 24 and verse 7. The new wine mourneth, the vine languisheth, all the merry-hearted do sigh. The new wine, which is going into all these different philosophies that Babylon has taught us, going to college, getting a job, the American dream. The American dream is through. Back then, if you went to college, or you didn't even have to go to college, you could just work a factory job, in the steel industry. And you could, afford a house, afford a car, afford to raise kids. Nowadays, you can't. It's impossible to rent, to own a home, because they're constantly going up in price. That's why all these people are out here mourning, crying, for prices to go down. But they're not going to go down. This economy is only going to collapse more and more. But yet people still out here eating, drinking, and marrying. Proud as all hell with a dying economy. Verse 8, the mirth of the tabrets ceases, the noise of them that rejoice endeth, the joys of the harp ceases. And all you can see all these different bars and nightclubs. Yeah, people still go to them, but it's not the same how it was 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, because people know that this place is done. So a lot of people, they're not really in that mindset of going out and just having a good old time, because they're faking it. You can only fake it so long till eventually you're like, damn, is this all America has to offer? And that's the mindset of these people. That they're in the house of mirth, and pretty much this is all they know. That's why they're mourning, because they don't have anything to look forward to. But us of the hopeful elect, we know that we got the kingdom of heaven coming. But first, this place has to collapse. But though these people out here, the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, and these heathens, they don't have that hope. Their hope is in America, in Babylon the Great. Their hope is in the Super Bowl and in these rappers, and these celebrities. Their hope is in the U.S. dollar to bounce back. This is what these people are hoping for. For their stocks to go up. That's ultimately why they're mourning, because their hope is in a corruptible crown that Esau Edom, he's going to take away very soon. He's going to crash the economy. People are going to lose all their so-called assets in the stock market, the gold and silver, their 401ks, their pensions gone just like that. But yet, that's what they're going to get for trusting in this wicked ass system, for trusting in Egypt, especially our people, the nation of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Verse 9, they shall not drink wine with a song. Strong drink shall be bitter to them that drink it. And that's right. Majority of the people out here, the main reason they drink is to try to drown out all the sorrow, all the thoughts they're having, but it's not going away ultimately because Yahweh Shemel Shai is wrapping this thing up. He's not letting them get away of the reality of what's happening around the world. That's why people are constantly drinking 24/7, popping meds, popping drugs, smoking weed, popping these different pills. You got a lot of people on fentanyl, meth, but yet they still can't get away from what's going on around the world. Because sooner or later, all these different things that people rely on a day-to-day basis to get them throughout the day is all going to be taken away. And it's being taken away now. How much more when all hell breaks loose? People don't have access to alcohol, to their medications, to their diabetes medicine. It's going to be bad. But ultimately, that's what they get for trusting in this wicked ass system. You got all these different rappers, all these different musicians. They're not selling out their concerts anymore, their shows. Their venues are empty because people don't have money to go out anymore. People aren't in that mindset of just going out and having a good old time, because ultimately this place is done. The economy's collapsing. The mores on these people are getting worse. People are just offing themselves, deleting each other. Verse 10, the city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up, that no man may come in. Verse 11, there is a crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened. The mirth of the land is gone. And people are crying out for answers now. But ultimately, Yahweh Shemel Shai still has the men of the Lord. His prophets out here telling our people to repent. Telling the heathen nations their judgment. But yet people still ain't gonna get it. Only the elect are gonna turn back to Yahweh Shemel Shai and find that comfort. Find the comfort, in the scriptures. Finding comfort for that, the hope of the kingdom of heaven. Finding comfort in salvation. Being delivered out of this upcoming destruction. But how much more, when all hell breaks loose, when the prophets get taken off the street corners and off the internet, people are really going to be crying out for answers, but they're not going to find them. Ultimately, because Yahweh Shemel Shai is not going to let them find that comfort. A lot of people are going to try to off themselves. They're not going to be able to. Ultimately for trusting in this wicked ass system. That's what these people get. We know that the system's collapsing. We go to our jobs, pay our bills, ultimately to get our daily bread. We're not worried about chasing a bag and establishing generational wealth like these people were hoping to do so. Now that all those hopes are vanishing away, that's why these people are through. They're mourning. You can see it in their faces and their countenance. A lot of them are faking a funk, but ultimately they're gonna come to find out that America was never, for the average person. This place is really for the elites, for the elites to get rich. But people are gonna have to have that rude awakening to finally realize that America was never formed. That this place was done, that it was just an experiment that the elites are doing away with now. But that's pretty much the point. I pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Kakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, following this truth from the well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Until I say Shalom.